I miss that sexy smile, looking for to see you. I hope I will lose control. Love you every night, no checking the time, 'cause I was loving you all night long. I can let you go, baby.
Hello. Am I on camera right now? Yeah, my sound is not like, I can't hear myself in my mic, y'all, just so you know. So if that affects anything, we can blame audio. All right. So today is a very special day. I've got Rollo. There we go. We're back. I got to let y'all know when something's going down that's wrong, because if I start looking weird and bugging my eyes out, I got to blame somebody, you know. You're going to be thinking I'm passing gas here, and I'm not. So let me just say that. Okay.
We'll let you know.
Everyone's on.
I don't smell anything. I think we're good. I don't smell a single thing.
I got two... Let's use this word, two high value men. No, we have to decide what that means. Rollo sometimes doesn't like to define it, as we've learned in the last couple of weeks.
We defined it pretty accurately, I think, by 2 days ago.
So we've got Rollo Tomassi, we've got MichaelSartain in the house. We're going to talk about their show, Access Vegas. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. Rollo's been causing a lot of controversy out on the internet, so we're going to talk about. Listen. If I had to, one of the two of you has caused more controversy in the last few weeks,
over the 2
and
weeks.
shocking to all of us, it's you, Rollo. So we're going to talk about his tweet that went viral and some of the commentary that passed as a result of that. We're going to talk about some inner turmoil that's been going on in the red pill community. I know Rollo doesn't like that term when I say the red pill space, the red pill community, the red pill ideology.
You can call it the red pill community.
All right. So there's been a lot of turmoil. We're going to get into that. We'll talk about the tweet, as I said. We're going to talk about red pill versus traditional conservatives. I see you ganging up on some traditional conservatives.
Oh, they're ganging up on me. It's nothing new.
So we'll discuss that.
Yeah.
And I'm a traditional conservative, so maybe you'll gang up on me a little bit. We'll see how that goes. High value men, what does that mean? Should we be defining it? Should we all have a different definition of it? Is that a problem if we all have a different definition of it? We'll talk about that. Male discipline is something I want to ask you guys
Here we
about.
go. And Justin Waller question.
That's exactly right.
Go.
And we may disagree on that point as well. We'll see. And Access Vegas, your show, which I think is really interesting. I have some clips from that.
Sure.
I want to show the audience.
Oh, they got clips from
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Oh, we're
yeah.
in trouble now.
I've got
That's a
clips.
surprise.
I've got clips, y'all.
Yes.
I saved the best for last. Before we begin, I want to tell you today's show is brought to you by Aura. Y'all know that I can't stand the Matrix. I loathe it. I want to protect your security. I want to protect your privacy. Aura is here to help. How many times has your password appeared on the dark web? Ask yourself, if you don't know the answer to that question, you should find out. So what does Aura do? Well, they tell you that. They're going to tell you how many times your passwords are there. They're going to tell you if your financial security, your financial stability is at risk. Also, they're going to give you real-time updates. If somebody opens a credit card in your name, you're going to find out about it. You're going to get real-time alerts. Aura protects you from scammers and hackers by scanning the so-called dark web, where criminals steal all that information, nasty stuff. Looking for your emails, your passwords, your social security numbers. It alerts you fast if it finds anything. We've all been in that position. I've had my credit card stolen. People get their identity stolen. I think identity theft is happening every 14 seconds in this country now. It's a serious thing. All of a sudden it snowballs. You don't know what's going on. You start to panic. Save yourself the panic and partner with someone like Aura, which is what I have done. Let them do the hard work for you. Their VPN allows you to stay anonymous online. It keeps your browsing history and personal information safe and encrypted. You got your password in your bank accounts. You got your password all over the internet. You buy stuff. It's everywhere. Don't you want to know if that stuff is actually safe? And oftentimes we use the same passwords, So if it's compromised in one space, all of a sudden everything is dark, as we like to say. Or it helps you manage what your kids can do. If you've got kids out there, you want to control what they're doing on their devices. You can restrict apps. You can set screen time limits. You can set focus times to ensure your kid is doing their homework instead of binging on YouTube. Hopefully they're not binging this. I don't think this is kid friendly. Just saying. Anyway. Let Aura do the hard work of keeping you safe online. If you sign up right now, you're going to get a 2-week free trial. Go on in, try it out. I just signed my parents up. They love it. They get real-time alerts. You can set limits. If you say, send me an alert every time something is purchased for over $250, you will get that alert. It's just information is power. You can go in the description right now, aura.com/Jedediah. You're going to get those 2 weeks free. And this is what I want you to do. Do it and let me know how many times your passwords were compromised. How many times your passwords were on the dark web. Was it 20? I think the first time I did it, mine was like 30-something, 30 plus. My parents had 30 plus. A friend of mine had it was an insane number. I was like, how many passwords do you have, girlfriend? Regardless, Everyone is safer now as a result. I told you that I will never promote or endorse something on the show that I don't use. I use it. My family uses it. We love it. Again, get your 2 weeks free. Tell me what you find. Link in the description, aura.com/Jedediah. All right, I'm back.
That
I'm
Matrix,
back.
man. That Matrix be coming for you, man.
That's some nasty stuff.
I'm not playing around.
Ride for that
That's
Matrix,
nasty.
man.
I am not nasty. Oh, I don't have my button. I don't need the button. Don't worry. They didn't give me my button. I'm just gonna have to say it myself. Are you
Before we
familiar
start,
with the
can you say
nasty?
this?
I did. I watched about 20 hours of your stuff this week.
Oh yeah, nasty.
Can we talk?
Yeah.
Can we talk?
Can we talk?
Can we talk?
Don't I sound like an episode of My Cousin Vinny just rolled
Rivers.
right out?
John Rivers. You're the John Rivers.
My New York accent has gotten stronger since I moved to Florida, and
Yeah.
I don't understand why.
Because there's more New Yorkers here than there are in New York.
Also, I think it's just the freedom of doing my own show. When you're in that like corporate setting, you always feel kind of stiff. My mom used to tell me, "Oh, I watched you on TV today. You look like you're in a straitjacket," and I would be like, "Yeah, I am." You know, in many ways, silenced all that stuff. And here, I just kind of talk, and now it's like very intense, and people will write in and be like, "Brooklyn girl," but I'm proud of it. You got to be proud of where you come. Where are you guys from again?
I'm from Southern California.
I'm from North Texas. Actually, it comes
Where in
out of
Texas?
from Dallas, from East
Oh,
Dallas.
okay.
It's funny because that my accent does come out at the end of when we do 4 hours and I start getting tired. I'm like, y'all, let me tell you something. Let's get on back to the basics here.
Cowboy boots come
Yeah,
on.
for sure.
You're
It's
from
different.
Southern California?
Yeah,
Where?
Pasadena, California.
Oh, it's so pretty.
Spent a lot of
there.
time at Huntington Beach too, so
Oh,
sometimes the
man.
surfer kid comes out now.
That's like the best weather in the world.
Oh yeah.
People keep
I
saying,
agree.
"Oh, Florida's the same." No, it's not.
That's why the
Because you-
Cowboys. That's why the Cowboys are in Oxnard for
There you go.
for
Yeah,
training camp.
that's true.
There you go. All right, so I want to get started today. Lots to talk about. Oh man, Rollo. All right, so I can't with you. So we all know you put
Got
out a tweet.
lot of things on your list.
Yeah,
there.
because I have a lot of clips I want to play. I've been watching, you've been popping up everywhere. Both of you guys actually on, Fresh and Fit, whatever podcast, all this stuff. And some interesting stuff has transpired. It's been interesting to hear you talk about the tweet. And there's been sort of an evolution in terms of how you've talked about it too. And then your commentary on it. It's just a fascinating thing. My first question to you is, and we'll get to the tweet. Let's actually remind everybody of what the tweet was. Deli, let's hit that first one.
You know how many times I've seen this.
Yeah, I'm going to show it again.
And
And the audience will know this already. I didn't cover it explicitly, although Sneeko brought it up when he was here. I hadn't seen it, by the way. When he brought that up to me that day, I had not seen the full context. So I was just responding in the moment, what I thought, knowing what I know of you. The quickest path to becoming a high-value man. 1, do not get married. 2, avoid family creation. 3, vasectomy in your 20s. That's the line that kind of
everybody loses their minds.
4 to 8 really were like lift consistently, eliminate all sedations, learn game and networking, play to your strengths, build wealth, resist easing up on your focus. So 4 to 8, I think everybody was kind of like, okay, we're all in agreement. It was the 1 through 3 that got you into trouble. So here's my question to you, knowing what I know about you first and foremost. Did you write this way on purpose to create drama and get people talking?
Yes and no. The inspiration for this was I was watching an episode of Fresh and Fit, and Brandon Carter was on there. I don't know if you're familiar with Brandon Carter,
yeah.
but he's around here quite a bit. I like him quite a bit. I like his delivery. I think he's very funny. He should have missed his calling. I think he should be a stand-up comedian, to be quite honest. But the way he lives his life is pretty much he eliminates all distractions and just focuses straight on what he's doing. So he was on, I think it was a Money Mondays or something with Fresh and Fit. He was there with Derek Moneyberg and himself. And if you know anything about Brandon, his, outlook on life is he doesn't have a car. He doesn't go do his own shopping. He doesn't do his laundry. He doesn't do, and like he outsources things that you probably do, like you don't even think about it, right? So he's got a laundry service. He's got a maid. He's got somebody goes and I don't know how he gets his food, but like he doesn't go spend time at the grocery store buying food. Like, he either goes out or somebody brings it to him. So it doesn't have a car. All these things that we think of and we take for granted and we would spend time doing. It's like this maximal, zero distractions, so that every hour that is spent in his day that would be for like domestic things is spent on making money on the grind, right? And so it kind of occurred to me at that point is that if you're going to go over the top, if you want to get to this, quote unquote, this mythological, high value man status, whatever that ends up to you, what are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to sacrifice marriage? Are you willing to sacrifice family? Are you willing to, in some cases, vasectomy is where everybody, like now I'm the vasectomy guy for whatever reason, right? 20 years in the red pill and I'm the vasectomy guy. Thanks. But again,
by the way, you have a family. You
I have a family.
child and a wife.
And that's the thing that's great is like, you got it. Because you know who I am.
Yeah.
You know what my background is. You know what my family is.
The one lady
about.
who told you that you should like burn in hell. Do you remember? It's like, I'm so glad that you're
Yes.
never going to have offspring. And your response
like,
was, who's going to tell her?
Yeah,
Who's going
to tell her, right? You got it. Hotep Jesus got it because he knows my background as well. And so, so when I'm out there and I'm people are saying, "Hey man, is this what you said? Is this what you guys are really about? I can't believe those red pill guys are about getting a vasectomy in their 20s." I'm like, really? I mean, do you honestly think that that's like that this isn't a troll, that this isn't something that's over the top, that this is something that's a little bit extreme? But the thing is and I've learned this lesson well, is that you cannot use metaphor, you cannot use hyperbole, you cannot use any kind of prose, anything that's that is sarcasm, because people take it so literally on social media right now.
But knowing that, let me just ask, because knowing that, I think you're right about that. I think social media
No one
is
has a sense of humor
where,
anymore.
And
It's
also
like, get over
there's just not a lot of
yourselves.
thinking people in those spaces. If you go out into the world, you're always kind of like amused by how different real people are than how the people present themselves on social. You're like, are these just a different population that's on this space? But knowing that people can be very literal and that they're looking at this as you giving a prescription for how to do
That's
things.
what they want. They
right.
want
But
that
knowing
prescription.
that, is it then your responsibility to
I don't
word
know.
this
Is it my
differently?
responsibility? Am I my brother's keeper? Am I my sister's keeper? Right? Am I responsible for everybody that's online? It's going to take that. I was explaining this on Fresh and Fit and as well on whatever podcast not too long ago. You can't go, you, me, everybody in this room, anybody with a social media account, you cannot go online and even just deliver any kind of information in the most innocuous, most dry, most Mr. Spock logical way of putting it out there without somebody saying, "Why are you telling me this? What do you want me to believe? Because you just put these statistics out there. What do you want me to do?" You cannot give or deliver information today without telling people how to feel about it.
Well, let me ask you this.
So if
though.
anything, that tweet is an indictment on the way that people were taking it in the first place.
So would you, if you could go back and clarify this, I'm curious, were you saying do not get married in your 20s? Were you saying avoid family creation in your 20s? Because then you say vasectomy in your 20s. Was that all grouped into your 20s?
If there was, let's just say, I tried to clarify this on Fresh and Fit the other day, is that if there were some other way for guys to avoid paternity suits, other than if they're, we're in 2023
I have
right
another
now.
way.
Yeah.
Can I
Well, yeah,
offer another
keep your
way?
dicks in your pants. Got it.
Yeah,
I understand
but
that.
why not
Yeah.
say that? Let me ask you.
You could say that. Okay. You could say that. You could say, we'll just practice abstinence. Is that more realistic for what's going on with people in the real world today or not? Again, it's a throwaway tweet. I had no idea that like Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Lauren Chin, everybody's going to jump all over this because they think that it's blood in the water, especially now, because as we're getting into the 2023 election cycle, you're going to see all these people who got into the manosphere and really wanted to play footsie with whatever podcasts and Fresh and Fit and me and anybody else.
Talking about me, Rollo?
No, not necessarily you, but like you can because
I'm asking.
because I can go and look at PragerU right now, and
Yeah.
Amala is going and doing clips with hell, she's been on whatever podcast.
Yeah.
They want to dip their toe in the water up to a point. They want to pick and pull the things that they're good with, like the last 4 items on that list.
Yeah.
But they don't like the other parts of it. It's this pick and pull. Like we can just take what we want to from the red pill, and then we can just sort of force fit it into what our ideology happens to be. And now that we're getting into, we're going to be seeing a narrative pivot here. I think we're probably already seeing it with this. Maybe I helped introduce it, but. People are going to start going to the culture war narrative right now. And the culture war narrative does not include all of the stuff that everybody's been playing footsie with the red pill right now. So all these people who wanted to be a part of the red pill or part of the manosphere, however they wanted to force fit it, now they can't be associated. So they've got to dissociate themselves from that. So come like say August or September of this year, you're going to find this mass exodus of these people who say, well, we were never part of the red pill. We were never part of the manosphere.
I mean, I've always been someone, I'm going to get to you in 1 second. I want to hear your take on all this too. I've always been someone who my primary politics and the culture war is primary for me. And this became interesting to me actually, because that falls into like dating dynamics and men and women are different. And why can't we just acknowledge that and all of that? When I read this, I know you, so I knew what you were doing, but I also thought, so for me, I said, you know what? I know him. I know he's pushing the envelope. I knew what I thought you were trying to say, and I think I was pretty close to what you were trying to say. But I also know how the majority of people would read it. So that was a concern of mine. I said, you know what? There are people who look up to you. And even though you say you're not giving advice, and I take you at your word that that's not your intention, people read your stuff and they do take it as advice. So for me, like, I think a vasectomy is always a bad idea. To me, that's just mutilation. I don't think that should, for health reasons and all that.
It with being trans surgery.
I didn't say that, but a lot of I also feel, I just feel like it's not something guys should be doing.
I took it to the extreme, and then everybody interprets me as saying that this is the gospel truth. While they take it to the extreme.
Right. Like I thought a better way for, like what I said, for if your message is that these things can be a distraction and you're removing the distraction, then I want to encourage, because I do care about discipline, my message on that would have been, don't be promiscuous. Don't risk the chance that you could get somebody pregnant and you could entangle yourself, in a way that you don't want to do with somebody you don't necessarily want to build a life with. Don't mutilate your body. Don't go there. You don't have to. If male discipline is something that's really powerful, and I think it can be, you have the power to do that. That would have been my. Now, maybe that wouldn't have gotten as many retweets or as many people talking about it.
Exactly.
That is the point.
So let me ask you, when you read, you know him.
Yeah.
You work with him.
Of course.
Yeah, he does.
When you read this, did you immediately know what he was doing?
Yeah, not only did I not think that he legitimately or literally meant vasectomy, I don't believe anyone read that and then went out and got a vasectomy, which is why I wasn't so concerned about it. The first thing is this: if I had written that same tweet, that third line would have said something to the effect of, choose when and where you want to have a family when you are emotionally and financially ready to do so. And he talks about this in his book.
And that would have actually encapsulated all three. The
would
1, 2, 3.
have been great.
Pretty
and
much.
you know what would have happened? We wouldn't be talking about this.
Ben Shapiro wouldn't have jumped on it. Matt Walsh wouldn't have jumped on it.
I don't have a tweet that Ben Shapiro or Matt Walsh had done. And it's funny because afterwards I tweeted vasectomy to see if I could go viral. It didn't work. It was so crazy.
I love it.
So one of the things was like in that instance, I was like, oh, okay, Rollo's trolling you and you guys see what's going on here. Because here's what's happened, right? A good piece of advice would be, hey, as a man, don't be distracted and try to work on money, muscles, game, whatever you want to say, whatever your personal self-help mantra is. And during that time, you can probably stack up more money not having a kid in your early 20s as a man than maybe waiting to a later point when you found the right woman and you have the right amount of money. What's an extreme example of what I just said? Vasectomy. That is the 10 out of 10 is like hysterectomy plus vasectomy. Absolutely no chance for having children. That's the 10 out of 10 like idiot proof example. And that's what I saw when I was.
But that's not what bothers me about it. What bothers me about the vasectomy and the choice of that isn't that it's extreme, although some people, went
I think
with
it's a 10 out of 10 solution.
It makes it for me feel like those guys can't exercise discipline over their own lives without doing something like, I got to have a surgery because I can't control myself. And that's just lame, honestly.
Right. So, but that's also a literal interpretation that you actually meant vasectomy, which I never thought he meant. But let's go back to this.
But for those who, and I didn't think he meant that either, he's got a kid. I mean, so I wasn't thinking he was saying don't start a family.
That's what made it so funny. That's what made it so funny
us,
is that he had a kid. Because he's been married for 27 years.
What worried me about it, and maybe this didn't worry you about it, as you're saying, but I was thinking, well, I hope people aren't taking this the wrong way and actually following a path in their own lives, thinking this is how I become a high value man. Bullet. Okay, let me check it off. You'd be surprised. There's some brain deads out there. I mean, I'm sorry to say,
but
it's
you know what
true.
those brain deads need to do? Get a vasectomy because we don't need you to replicate it.
It is good advice.
That's what we need. We need you to take yourself out of the genetic pool.
So go ahead. Finish
So
what
you know what? The other thing is at the very top it says the quickest way. It doesn't say the only way, right?
The best way, the only way.
So if I was going to say 100%, I need to stack my cash, grind set, like not traditional conservative values, but more like the grind set values. These guys who just work 24 hours a day, that type of person. If I were going to say the quickest way, I could see some of that sort of being accurate. But I like, for instance, I want to be a high value man, but I don't need to go the quickest way. I also have a girlfriend, right? There are other things I do. I work in animal rescue. There's things that are not really helping me become a high value man, but I still do them.
I disagree with that actually, though, because we can get into the definition of a high. I think those actually do make you into more of a high value man, depending upon who's talking about it and depending upon what that definition actually means.
Before you had mentioned something about supply and demand. So I used to be a trader. Oh, I still am a trader. I was a professional trader for like 10 years, 8 years. In that time, the S&P 500 is not listed based on my opinion or my feelings or the morality of the 500 companies in the S&P 500. The price of the S&P 500 is a bid and ask where they meet each other based on only one thing, supply and demand. period. So if we were going to define supply and demand as the way to define a high value man versus a high status man, I actually have a different definition for high status versus high value. For a high value man, when we say this, a person can be like, I am religiously fundamental, and I look at Dan Bilzerian and I think it's disgusting what he's doing. Dan is a friend of mine. When I look at Dan and I see these women fighting to hang out with him, it is, for me, from the supply and demand curve, it is clear to me that there's high demand for him, right? From a standpoint, if I was going to say I'm Muslim or Christian or some other fundamentalist, and I looked at him, I'd be like, well, now he's not a high value man because he dates multiple women. So in that case, what is the correct answer? The correct answer is it depends on who you are and what your context is. If I'm in Amman, Jordan, right, and I look at somebody, and let's say I have a wife and my wife has like breast implants. Somebody in Amman, Jordan might be like, that's haram. You're not supposed to be able to do that. That's terrible. You should. Right. So from him and his standpoint, he is completely accurate in his viewpoint of what a high value man is. And my viewpoint is different. And that's kind of also the point of the tweet is that like when you try to nail us down, here's the problem, right? So the people who are main criticisms of us, and I have a lot more respect for Destiny and Sneeko after debating them a couple of days ago.
It was a great conversation.
Yeah,
we'll show a piece of that. It was actually new.
So one of the things is red pill, right? So I don't think anyone can be red pill. I think you're red pill aware. I think that's all you can be. There's no red pill fucking. I didn't get a union card for red pill. I didn't get here's my red pill merit badge that I just got. It's just a concept. Like I believe in gravity from Principia in 1689 by Isaac Newton. It doesn't make me a gravityist, right? I just believe in these concepts. So now if I understand these concepts, but the thing is, it's ethereal. It's almost like a puff of smoke. I need something to hit. Well, I don't have anything to hit. Red pill is just sort of this amalgamation of ideas. Wait, here's a person to hit. Look at him. He's right here.
I am red pill. I'm not red pill adjacent. There's no escape for me.
So like, but the thing is, he has a book. I can hit the book. I can lift the book. I can open the book and criticize the book. And now what's another thing I have? I have a tweet. I can attack a tweet, and now I have a book, and now I have a person to attack. I had this puff of smoke that I couldn't attack, and now I have this specific thing that I can attack. And so because of
they want a villain.
That's what
I mean. For me, the thing that was a challenge for me from the tweet actually was that it brought me into this whole, I'm very introspective and I think about these things. I watched a lot of content on it, and it became this issue of, okay, high value man, high value woman, do these things have an actual definition that we can all agree on? And you struggled to do that on Fresh and Fit. I watched the conversation. It was hard to get.
I think we did a better job of it on Fresh and Fit than
Or is it subjective?
before.
Because when you put in your tweet, I think the challenge for a lot of people was when you said do not get married, avoid family creation, and you didn't specify age for those two. I think for me, I looked at that. For me, a high value man is a family man, is somebody who has children, is someone who's a good father. That's a really important component of that for me. So if you weed those two, if I were to follow this advice, it doesn't fit the definition of a high value man as I see it, which led me into the space of like, okay, if everything is subjective, then how can anybody strive to hit that title? Because there's a lot of guys that we say strive to be a high value man, strive to be a high value man. What does that even mean if it's so subjective?
So even though it's subjective, it is still within a parameter. So for instance, the discussion of free will, sometimes you have in evolutionary psychology, is like how much free will does a Homo sapien have? I can choose between vanilla and chocolate ice cream. I can't choose between vanilla and poop. Like there's certain things I cannot choose. So Sneeko made the analogy. He says, well, in that case, the sports guy who weighs 500 pounds can be high value. I was like, no, under none of these circumstances is that high value. None of them. So the thing is, high value man is within a spectrum. Yes, you can have some different people in the spectrum. The thing is, you're going to talk about later about the difference between TradCon and red pill. There's a lot of people in red pill who are like, me having children can be good. Me not having children can also be good. But in TradCon, it tends to be me having children is the purpose for my existence. Yeah. And so those two things are different. So now we have two different definitions of what a high value man is.
But there's also the difference of like multiple women and separate. That's a very big difference.
Yeah, that's also. But if a man cures cancer and doesn't have any kids, like for instance, I'll tell you who one of my favorite high value men of all time is Isaac Newton, who died a virgin. Right? He never had any kids. And so one of the things is, what did he do? He invented differential calculus and found us and discovered gravity. To me, that would be a high value thing. But he didn't have any kids. Right. So like, how does that work? If you're a traditional conservative, well, then it doesn't work. And that's the thing. It's always going to be a perspective. But the thing is, he contributed something. Right? He wasn't a terrible person.
Yep.
So in that spectrum of different possible high value men, he's still in the spectrum. It's just when people go outside the norm and just start saying, well, then that means anyone could. No, it doesn't mean anyone. There's certain things. For me, if you're going to ask my definition,
it's still a framework.
Yeah, it's going to be you date who you want. So if a man wants to date multiple women or wants to date one, as long as it's his choice because he has enough abundance, then that's high value. He has a job where he can create some kind of value and is scalable, and he does something that he enjoys. So if you're a salesperson, you go to work more, you make more more money, or if you're in my case, I have a scalable business where I can actually work with other people and then make money that way. That would be number 2. And number 3, are you physically fit? Physically fit should be number 1. Have you taken your own physical fitness into account? Because when you're 80, the only thing that's going to matter is those moments that you have left with your family, right? So those, to me, those would be just baseline. Those would be the things. So I didn't.
Do you pair like self-defense? Because to me, physically fit, I know a lot of guys who are really strong, but they could never defend you. They don't you watch them in the gym and they're just like, oh my God, they're punching in the air. Like, it's horrible.
They don't have the
so that's almost more important than being physically fit is being able to defend yourself.
Yeah, but what happens then that means Ben, like, no offense, I could probably kick the shit out of Ben Shapiro. It doesn't mean that he's a low value man just because I'm bigger than him. So like one of those things, I don't know if that.
Where is
the
character piece here though? Can I ask that?
Where is this a great point? Because that's what we talked about before. Is like high value men, by the definition of supply and demand, some of them are fucking horrible people. Horrible. We use the Epstein analogy the other time.
Jeffrey Epstein, Sam Bankman-Fried, right? They still have lots of money. Epstein was how tall? But they're horrible people.
See, I would disagree though and say they can't be high value then because your character is a key component of that equation.
Thus further proving our point.
So again, like, is it what you bring to the marketplace? And when we talk about supply and demand, we talk about your value in terms of an exchange between people, what you can offer people, in terms of all of those things. But your character, if you are a horrible person and you've committed crimes or you've been engaging in it, your contribution to society, for me, despite how much money you have, is always going to be in the negative because what are you really doing to help society at large?
Use this example. I've been using this example recently. Now, you've probably heard me say this before because I drew this straight out of Alpha God by Dr. Hector Garcia, which is high value men have powerful men over the course of history. You probably heard Tate repeat something similar to this, is that they have had 3 things that make them powerful, or the attributes. One of them is resources, territory, and then access to usually virginic, but not always virginic, fertile young women, so that they can reproduce and spread the seed. Okay, so those you can say, well, is that a high value man? Is that a powerful man? So we can look at that, but then we can look at an example of, say, somebody like Mahatma Gandhi or Dr. Martin Luther King or even Carl Jung, if you'd like. They're not high value men in the sense that they had high earnings, especially with respect to Gandhi, but they made a significant impact in the world because of their lives, because of what they were doing. And all three of those men had multiple women in their lives, mistresses included. So how do they fit into the money, muscles, and game, scenario, or that trifecta of what makes for a high value guy? I would argue probably all 3 of those guys were not necessarily in the best physical shape of their lives, right? But they were still effective, and maybe it was character that you're talking about here. So arguably, whoever, depending on what your ideological bent is, you might say, well, they're low value or they're high value, whatever. But the thing is you can't say that they didn't have a significant impact on the world, and you can't say that they weren't necessarily quote unquote high value men within the context of what they were doing and what their character was.
Does this also apply to women? I'm curious. The concept of a high value woman and I don't use the term low value because I don't really, but in terms of a high value woman, because I can delineate for you what I think that looks like. Sure. But I don't know that it's terribly subjective. If we sat here, it feels to me like oftentimes when it's spoken of about high value men, at least now that this has all come out, your tweet has actually started a really important conversation in my view. About this, there's more subjectivity that's allowed in the conversation when it comes to the guys. But then when we look at women, I would say if you're, hyper promiscuous as a woman, that's not going to generate high value for you. If you're somebody who wasn't raised right by your parents, that's a problem. If you're somebody who doesn't have respect for your body, that's a problem. If you're somebody who doesn't pair sex with emotion, for me, that's a problem. Sure. We can all agree on that. And I feel like it's much more clear. And I wonder if that, there's a part of me that wonders if some of the guys, not you, I'm not speaking to you directly, but are there some guys in this space who want to make excuses for behavior that is not character-wise so good? So they'll say, and this gets into the discipline debate a little bit, discipline is important except here. High value is important for all these things, but not necessarily this character component because that's something I don't want to do. And I feel like we shouldn't be as forgiving. Either these terms are going to be subjective and there's going to be room to breathe to a degree, or they're not and they're fixed, and then we all have to kind of agree on it, because then if we look at a tweet like Rollo's and we're looking at it like a prescription, if we don't have a fundamental agreement about what high value means, then the whole thing kind of doesn't. It's very hard to make sense of any of it.
I'm going to be a pragmatist here. We'll never all have an agreement on what a high value man is.
When I just spoke about the women, though,
Yeah.
am I on
Okay.
point and agree? Like, do you generally agree with what I've said?
Yes, to an extent. Now, and I hate to use you as an example because we've had this conversation before. Okay, so you just had a child at what 40 years old. Okay, you got married at 38.
I got married at 38. Yeah,
If I'm correct.
Yeah,
okay.
that's correct.
So essentially, what you did was you put off family, you put off, getting married, you put off all of these things so that you could get to and bravo for you, but like putting off all of these things up until the point where it was like, okay, now's the time for me to start a family now. And I've heard you say this, and I've said this myself. It's like there's nothing more important than my daughter. There's nothing more important than my situation of family is something that I find a lot of value in. Clearly, that's why. But when we look at, say, something like this list right here, there's still women such as yourself who are following that same life plan until the point where like, okay, well, now I've achieved all this stuff. I've got to the end of the line here. I'm 38. I think it's time to get married. I think it's time to have a kid.
Yeah.
So how is that life plan any different than the guy?
I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay.
I mean, I would definitely say that's not recommended.
But to
and
get
I
to
also
where you are right now, you still had to go through that process to get to the point so you can say, I wouldn't recommend it.
Well, that's true. But isn't like, I mean, if we can't acknowledge like that would, it's hard for me to say a mistake because I have the most beautiful child and I have a husband that I would not trade for anyone in the world.
Yeah.
Like I got very lucky, but I'm also, I say
point.
I got lucky and a lot of women won't get lucky in that capacity. I also did have a lot of options. I took really good care of myself, fit. I mean, I ate well. I did everything right so that truthfully at 34, I looked 24. Like that's not a joke. I'm 44 now and so not everybody's going to do that either. But what I will say is if you could guarantee, like if I could go back and do it differently and still have this amazing child and this amazing husband, would I recommend that women wait or delay? I wouldn't. And so I could either sit and I could tell them the truth and say that is a mistake, or I could, say, well, I did it and it worked out okay for me. And that would be a lie because a lot of women aren't gonna get so lucky. And the reason I did it was not because of career. I actually tell the audience all the time, even though I wound up here, I'm not terribly ambitious. And I would have been really happy to I was a school teacher for a while. I was just in New York City and I was kind of lost. I never followed a promiscuous path. I was lost. I wanted to be close to my family. I was horribly shy. I didn't like New York guys. I didn't like, no offense, but like traders and types like that. I wanted like a Southern gentleman. And there weren't a lot of Southern gentlemen in New York, and that was Justin. And it sucked. Not that kind of Southern gentleman. I heard Justin say that he's going to have one wife and 50 girlfriends. So,
he's a powerful man.
That didn't appeal to me, and I got stuck in that. Like I was really alone for a lot of it, and I did work because it was like it kept me busy. But even in television, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do The View and work 5 days. It was so crazy. People would have died for that job, but. I'm not a good example because I'm so atypical and in terms of I'm not a great example, but I wouldn't tell women. So if I were going to tell women, like if you want to increase your value, I tell them, focus on your family, focus on, respect your body. Like don't spend a whole bunch of time buried in a career that doesn't make you happy because I did those things and it was a mistake.
Let's just use math. Let's not have any opinion or any emotion, right? So normal distribution and statistics, you're probably right at 2 standard deviations, right? So normally what you'd have a woman be able to get pregnant sometime between the ages of 18 and 28, maybe 35, somewhere around there. And I was reading somewhere like past the age of 40, it's like a 5% chance of getting pregnant.
And I got pregnant on try one. So I'm a weirdo,
Yeah, but you kept yourself in shape.
I did, and I eat exceptionally. Yes, that's why I'm saying it's like I'm a weirdo over here.
So 2 standard deviations, about 4.5%.
Correct.
So that's the likelihood of that happening. With 3 standard deviations, you got to remember it's 99.7%. So in this case, you're 2 standard deviations outside the norm. That's how I would explain it to someone to be like, I did this and it worked out, but there's only a 5% chance that this would have happened for me otherwise in any other situation. And so if you explain that, then that's fine. I don't really pass any moral judgment. For me, everything is statistics. Everything is, did it work or did it not work? So for instance, I'll give an example. My girlfriend posted, we posted something of my girlfriend saying this on whatever podcast yesterday. It's gone incredibly viral.
I thought you were making a joke when you said your girlfriend was next to you. I thought you were like making a joke about one of the girls on the panel. You actually brought your girlfriend.
That was my girlfriend next to me. Yeah.
Oh wow, I have to rewatch that with a whole new pair of eyes.
So she's sitting next to me and she says something to the effect of like, I'm never going to have an OnlyFans and I'm not going to start an OnlyFans because the man that I want to be with would not accept me having an OnlyFans. And the irony is for me, if somebody just posted bikini pictures and there was no nudity and there was no guy girl content, I don't really have a problem with OnlyFans per se. I think there's there's two different types of OnlyFans. There's hardcore stuff, and then there's just like girls posting stuff that like.
Then it's just like Instagram.
Yeah, Kylie Myers and Caitlin Runk are two girls, never posted any nude and make hundreds of thousands a month on OnlyFans, right? So like I didn't necessarily have an issue with that. What happened though is when she says something to the effect of, "Hey, it's going to be harder for you to find your dream man because you're posting stuff on OnlyFans." If you came to me and said, "Hey, Michael, if you play basketball for 20 years, it's going to fuck up your knees," I wouldn't be like, "Dude, you're a horrible person. Why are you telling me these consequences? Why are you But for some reason, when you explain to women in the most innocuous way possible, "Hey, you doing guy-girl content with multiple men on your OnlyFans is going to make it harder for you to find a partner," the fact that they're offended and actually calling me a misogynist, dude, I am not. Love Myron. I'm not Myron. I'm not sitting there calling these girls 304s. I am straight up being as nice as possible, saying, "Listen, I love you as a human. I'm just going to tell you that after the third dude that you film with on your OF, you're going to have some trouble finding a good husband afterwards. Don't yell at me. That's crazy that you're yelling at me for this."
The reason they do that is because they want to continue the bad behavior. They're making money.
Of course.
And they want it to be condoned. They want it to be socially
You're attacking
accepted.
their livelihood.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, make your money. Do OnlyFans if you want. I'm just expressing to you, like just like you did, right?
Yeah.
You're outside of 2 standard deviations. You waited till you're 40. It's not a good idea, but sometimes it works out. And some of these girls are filming with their husbands. And so in that case, it did work out, right? They got to have a husband. They're making
what happens
300,000.
when that marriage ends?
Exactly.
Which statistically very well may. And then the next guy is going to be what? Now there's content of her and this guy. Nasty stuff.
Right. So,
like,
you're seeing it. I'm not even including nasty. I'm just saying statistics.
Right.
Statistically, you are going to have a harder time finding another man that you're going to be attracted to. Finding another man, yes. The attractive women can find men all day, every day. It's not going to have any problem whatsoever. Finding a man, but what'll happen, and I've had a girl say this before, when they've been, promiscuous before and a man chooses them, there's always this voice in their back of their head like, why did this guy choose me? What's wrong in his life that he chose the girl who has like all this guy girl content on there? And then the response that I get from these women, which is mind-blowing to me, is they go, "No, the reason why he wouldn't like that is because he's insecure. There is nothing wrong with me not wanting to see the future mother of my children fuck other men on camera. There is nothing wrong with that, and that does not make me insecure to believe that." Now, if it's like, I'm not like some of the red pill guys are like, "Well, if she has an OnlyFans, she's cheating on you." I'm like, no, I don't believe that. But to an extreme example, if I even try to express slight consequences to some of these women, for them to call me a misogynist, dude, I work for an animal rescue charity and I work for a domestic abuse charity. I literally help stop human trafficking. You're calling me a misogynist?
well, they do that to all the guys in this. Like
It's
Andrew
crazy.
Tate,
They're trying to
this,
ratio
that.
us right now because of the
Well,
schism.
it's also like
they
a
quote
hip
unquote
word.
schism.
But the thing is, what some of the things that Andrew says are specifically to incite people, to get them upset. He knows that. That's why he's a genius when he's communicating like that. I toned it way down. Say, hey, if you want to do OnlyFans, do OnlyFans. It's up to you. You can do that. But what I'm saying is, when you film guy-girl content, just know you might have a hard time getting that dream man to come be with you later. That is not an offensive statement.
No, it's just fact.
Well, dude, read the comments that some of these girls are leaving.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and it's crazy.
And by the way, I do call, if they call themselves 304s, I'm happy to say you're a 304. Like, they identify themselves. I'm sorry, maybe they don't use the word, but if they say, "Oh, I got a body count of 50 and I'm 19, I'm really content and comfortable saying that's a 304. That is nasty. That is disgusting. We had words for girls like that in high school back in the day, and it wasn't good. So you have to sometimes. I consider myself. You call me the Joan Rivers. By the way, I love Joan Rivers. I stopped watching award shows after that because she told everybody the truth.
Yeah,
I'm like tough love with these women. I think women are beautiful. I think that women can make incredible contributions to society. I think there's nothing like a mom. I feel really strongly that somebody needs to shake these women, and I'm a woman, so I feel like I can do it in a way that guys can, and just be like, look in the mirror, like aren't you disgusted? Change your behavior. None of us can. I need a barf bag on set sometimes when these girls are talking because it's nasty stuff. So I feel like you have to be willing to call it out. And everybody loves my nasty button because they say Jed's not afraid to call bad behavior
Sure.
because you have to have some sort of like that. That's why I'm trying to get to the tangible component of words too. We're now in a time where you can't call a man, a woman, a woman. Everybody's afraid of words.
That's my number one like pet peeve right now is that, and I remember our first time together, and you were calling was Jeremy's your husband. You were saying this is my partner. I'm like, that is the language of wokeism or
Yeah,
wokeism.
yeah.
That is that language. If you really want something tangible to do, people say, well, what can we do to fight against the wokesies, Rollo? I'm like, first thing you can do is stop using their language. Stop using terms that are like, I can't even
And I
introduce
didn't even
this.
think about it like
I can't
that.
introduce him as my partner because people think,
What does that
what do you
mean?
think? What do you think?
Hey, don't
that's
judge
my
us.
Yeah.
Don't judge us.
Stop it. Yeah.
We have a non-conventional relationship.
Exactly. So it's like it's using like that's the first thing is like the language of empiricism is always going to sound
Yeah.
like hate to the language of emotionalism. And by the way, wokesies aren't the only faction that uses the language of emotionalism. It is also on the TradCon side of things. They just couch it in religion.
I'm going to get to that.
Yeah.
I wanted to, because I have some tweets of yours about I don't know if you know how much you know about Lila Rose that you were going after and all that.
Yeah, we
quite a
spent
bit
all
about-
day talking
Oh,
about
Okay.
yeah, sure.
So I want to ask you a quick question about body count, though, and you don't have to elaborate on this, but I'm
a great
curious in terms of I'm curious though, like when we talk about women don't care as much about a man's body count
Correct.
as men care about women. I think that's true.
Well,
Is
you
there-
don't have to think it's true.
No,
There's a
right,
study
and you
done in
asked them-
1989 by Dr. David Buss where they surveyed 37 different cultures, and unequivocally, men cared more about body count than women did. And these cultures have nothing to do with each other. That proves
Right.
unassailably women care less about body count than men do. That's
do
not
you
an opinion.
think,
That's a
though,
fact.
do you think there's a cap? For example, I can say as a female, let me just use myself as an example, I wouldn't care if a guy had, it wouldn't be like, oh, this guy has a body count of 10, he's off limits for me. He's got to be,
Yeah.
that would not be an issue for me. But if you told me, like MLD comes out sometimes, love you MLD if you're listening, I do, but he'll come out and be like almost 200. For me, I'd be like, oh, I'm out of here. No, can't do. You know that. So is there a cap? Do you think most women would say that
For
we don't
men?
care about a guy's body count, but within reason?
We've asked that question on Access Vegas.
And what do they
several
say?
Times. And for the most part, they do not care about it. The only thing they do care is if they run into one of their present
Yes.
Oh,
boyfriend's
they
ex-girlfriends
get
at
jealous
the club.
then.
Yeah.
Oh,
if
that's
there's
jealous,
if
yeah.
they
Then it
have
gets
to have them face to face with an ex or something like that, that it's the confrontation possibility that really annoyed them.
They generally say, I would rather not know. And like from an evolutionary standpoint, it doesn't really make sense for them to like care as much about that number because it doesn't, the man they're with doesn't lose value because he's been with more women, meaning he doesn't lose social alignments or he doesn't mean he's weaker or anything like that.
But to me, it would translate as he would be less likely to be faithful. So if you're
So there's studies on this too, and
True.
it really doesn't show. The Institute for Family Studies shows that men are not more likely to cheat because they've had previous sexual partners. What happens with women is
but
that
psychologically, that's where the mind goes. Just to let you know.
Well, I think you're more likely to cheat if you live next to the Playboy Mansion. I think you're more likely to cheat if you're just surrounded by other attractive women who want to hook up
Opportunity.
with you. Whereas with women, I think women imprint. And again, there's just studies that show this. I can't prove this 100%, but women will imprint. If a woman has sex with the first guy and she falls in love with him, that the likelihood of her just wanting to stray is less than for a man. Because again, Dr. Buss in his book, When Men Behave Badly, about 83% of the time when a woman stepped out on her husband, she fell in love with her affair partner. For men, it was less than 30% of the time. What does that mean? That means men can have casual sex. and
Women
not-
have
not
to
afraid.
have an emotional investment in that guy. That's the whole thing. And I don't even think you need studies for this. Quite honestly, all you have to do is look at the online free streaming 4K pornography right now. So what is that? It is unlimited access to unlimited sexuality in a vicarious sense, of course. But what it does is it feeds men's innate mating strategy, which is having that unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. But the reason why that is because men can dissociate themselves emotionally from the sex act, whereas women cannot do that because they have to be more invested in the case she gets pregnant from the guy that she's with, because once she has become pregnant after the sex act, it's about protection, provisioning, and parental investment after that. So emotion, like when you say sex without emotion is low quality, it is immoral. Well, the reason why it's immoral is because to women there has to be that emotional attachment. For men, they can simply separate themselves from the emotional attachment, and we can see that evidenced in pornography all the time.
I hear from a lot of men though that will say, I get a lot of messages from guys that will say that when I talk about because I believe promiscuity is a black hole for everybody, but I believe it's a black hole for men and women for different reasons.
Yeah.
But I hear from a lot of guys that will say they had a promiscuous past to a degree, and they'll say then they met a woman that they're in love with.
What a crazy story. I can't imagine anything like that.
But they'll say, you know what? Like, I regret some of that. Like, I feel like it wasn't useful to my life in any way, and I actually feel like I wasted a lot of time and energy.
Men regret
in
the
that
opportunities
space.
they missed. Women regret the opportunities that they or the sex that they actually had.
That's not what I'm hearing though from a lot of them. I'm hearing if I could go back, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do that. I would spend time doing these other things you talk about, by the way, you know, getting in the gym, doing whatever. I just didn't need all that. And when they met this woman that was valuable to them, sex took on a whole different meaning to them, which means there is an emotional layer there that gets injected sometimes. I mean, there has to be a difference between sex with someone you love as a man and sex with someone you don't love as a man. There has to be another layer. Please tell me I'm not wrong about that.
No, there is another layer, but you can still have incredible sex with people you don't care about more frequently as a man. Remember, what we're saying is in general. This is one of the caveats when Dr. Buss came on my show. He said everything is in general. It doesn't because
I do that as well on the show.
Because 83% of the time women fall in love with their pair partners. That means 17% of the time women are just looking to have sex outside the marriage and don't fall in love with their affair partners. So we say these things in general because there's going to be people in the comments be like, no, that's not me.
I was just surprised by how many guys had made that comment to me. That was very surprising.
I've talked to several who haven't, or what the other thing that I found is that like what'll happen is, have you ever heard the term like rich people tell poor people that money doesn't mean anything?
Oh,
because, yeah. So it's kind of like that. It's like when Gautama Buddha tells everyone, when the Buddha tells everyone, hey, get rid of your harem after he had a harem, it's kind of ridiculous. Like, hey, bro, let me figure out after I have my harem.
But also, listen,
it's the prodigal son narrative.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, in a sense, when I'm saying, you know, I did my career and now I'm telling women that was a mistake, women they will say to me, well, sure, you did it. But there are people who go through it and learn and know better. And it's like when you know better, you want to tell people do better than I did.
Did you enjoy any of it? I bet being on The
Not
View
really.
was fun. You didn't enjoy it, really?
To be honest with you, I really was such a simple girl at heart that I could have, had it been the right guy, that first guy, I think I would have been content to just chill and not work and not, I don't even like to travel. I just want to be home and with my family. I'm very, very simple. I was just in a not so simple city, you know, and found myself in a not so simple industry by accident, really. I really thought I was going to be a college professor because you know why I wanted to be a college professor? Because it was easy.
Yeah.
I had a lot of time off and I would be able to,
So you were a different person.
What do you mean a different person?
So you wanted different things than you want. Look,
I wanted simplicity. I still want that now.
Okay, so you haven't changed. So
I haven't changed.
For me,
No.
the Lieutenant Sartain, who was off in the Middle East, when my girlfriend left me when I was deployed, that Lieutenant Sartain, if he had come back, the first girl who gave me any attention, I probably would have married them. I was in such a place of scarcity that for me to just look for monogamy at that point in my life would have been a horrible, horrible mistake compared to now, where I actually understand who I am as a man. It probably didn't actually happen for me until I was 40, just because a lot of my 20s were taken up by the U.S. military.
Okay.
During that period, like when I'm 45 years old now, when I look back at that period, understanding what I wanted before I was 40 and after 40 was different, because as men, we take longer to bake. It takes us long.
I believe that.
Even Richard Reeves talks about on average,
longer
it's
for
about
men to mature.
Yeah,
I feel like I came out like this. My mom's like, you were born. You like popped out of the womb like
You're
this.
a born adult.
But let's go back to the stats. Number one, Richard Reeves talks about this. Men are about 2 years behind women on average when it comes to their development, number one. And number two, if you look on some of the dating apps, specifically eHarmony, some of those numbers, women are in their peak as far as getting right swipes or getting chosen between the ages of 23 and 25. And men, it's after the age of 38. Why is that? Is it because we have bigger muscles? No, it's because women inherently have this understanding. This guy made it to 38. There's something, he's doing something right. He's acquired more wealth. He has more experience. Men must become, and women are. And so that's one of the reasons when we get later onto the Layla, what's her name? Layla,
Lila Rose.
Lila Rose. Well, that whole thing when she's sitting there questioning Justin Waller is like, why don't you have the discipline to settle down? I'm like, how come you didn't have the discipline to get married when you were 23? You waited till you were 34. When you were at your peak, you weren't interested in monogamy, but now Justin Waller's supposed to be interested in monogamy when he busted his ass to get rich.
Can we talk about that idea of male discipline? Because one critique that I have of some guys in the space is that they do preach discipline. And I'm on board, by the way, with everything about the gym and getting your finances in order and being stable and focusing on, your own well-being.
Yeah,
and
all
being
of the things that would benefit a woman later on in life so that they could start a family and complete that life mission.
I'm on board with all that. What I don't like is when guys who are very disciplined in all areas of their life come out and preach discipline, rightfully so, but then will say, well, let's not apply it to our sex lives because that's just not for me.
Right.
And it's like, well, you know what? It may not be for you, but when you make it sound like it's outside of your control, that's where you lose me. You may say, well, I want to have, one wife and 50 girlfriends, but if I really wanted to change that, I would. But what it sounds like is all of a sudden some of these guys become helpless and they're like, puppets to their eggplant, for better lack of a better word. They're like, I can be disciplined in every area of life, but what the eggplant tells me to do, I got to do. And that to me demeans your value, because I think of myself as a young girl, and I think people would have, if I, walked out here at 24 with the way I was living my life, most people would have said, this is a high value woman at the time. I would have been like, no way. Like, I need your discipline to carry through. That's important to me. So that seems like a flaw in the speaking of.
I think when we're defining self-control, you have to think of the context of that self-control. So if the guy has the discipline and the commitment to be in the military, we always say, oh, guys are commitment phobic. When we say committophobe, whatever the hell that means, it's usually won't commit to a woman. Okay, if you look at how much men have to commit to education, to the military, to family, to a career, to their starting their own business, men are certainly not committophobes in any of those senses. But when we talk about commitment, when we talk about self-control, we're putting it into a context that benefits women. That's the problem.
Right, but I'm not even saying, like, I can understand a guy who, I'm not saying commit to every woman. Like, there may be a woman that you're like, I'm just not that into you. Like, this is not worth it to me. That's different. But if you make a standard of like, oh, I just can't commit to a woman. I can't do it. It's not in my DNA. Well, why? Right, if you're so disciplined, why?
So let's talk about this. From an evolutionary standpoint, not right or wrong, no morals, no Christianity involved. It makes sense because men are more interested in casual sex than women are. And we have 17, for those of you who don't know this, we have 17 times as much testosterone in our system as women do. And that is the number one regulator of sexual libido. This is the reason why men can have casual sex more often than women. I don't care what anybody says about discipline or men are evil.
Yeah.
It is a function of endocrinology.
I agree with you on that.
Okay. So now understanding that, women, when you think about the horniest you've ever been in your life, okay, now multiply that times 17. That's Tuesday for us. That's a normal thing. So I'm not
Tuesday. I love it.
I'm not trying to make an excuse. I'm just trying to explain that's where it comes from. So now what happens is his definition of discipline is now different from your definition of discipline. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but in the case with Justin Waller, he's like, my discipline includes me doing all these other things. Here's the other thing.
But that's because he wants his discipline.
But not only that,
but he's not here to defend himself.
Right,
so
but again, think about this from Justin Waller's standpoint. When you say high, it doesn't make him a high status man. Does it help him with his business? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. In the War Room and in Hustle University, him being able to be with multiple women actually does help him.
Let me be clear, because I like Justin. I'm not picking on Justin, and I want Justin to be able to...
I'm staying at his house. Shout out to Justin Waller.
I'm not picking on you, Justin, because we've had great discussions, and I would definitely want him to be here to defend himself. But this is not even just about Justin. I've heard a lot of guys kind of talk about discipline, and for some reason, and I understand, they say, oh, the spread the seed mentality, what you're talking about, biologically, you're more driven. I understand the biological difference between men and women, and I'm not here to argue that men are definitely more horny than women. Anyone arguing that is just, I don't know, lost in space. But regardless, it's what you choose to act on, in my view. So what's very admirable to me always, and I said this to you in our first conversation, is a guy who does have those options, who women do want, but you make the choice and you say, I'm going to be disciplined in my life. And this woman who's, a 304 and is talking about how she screwed, half the NBA team last week, doesn't deserve my time or my energy. So thanks, but no thanks, honey. I appreciate the love and I'm glad. And now maybe another really nice girl over here sees that I'm wanted and desired, and I'm going to give my time to her. That to me is an indicator of value. That's something that I throughout my life would have looked at in a man and been like, that's really nice because he has the options. But he's not jumping into bed with some 304 because he feels that he deserves. He's just more worthy than that of goodness.
So I've chosen to settle down with my girlfriend, but it wasn't because of discipline. But before I met her, I was not intending on being in a relationship. And I think this is where a big differentiation comes. A lot of times women are like, I'm now, when he talks about the end of the Epiphany phase, I have now switched gears. And now I am looking for a monogamous relationship.
Stick the landing.
For me, Kylie landed on me to the point where there was no way I wasn't going to be in a relationship with her when I met her. I was like, no interest in being in a relationship. Oh, but I am with you. With you, all of a sudden the parameters. Great. But that's not discipline, Jedediah. That was a function of a boulder hitting me in the head and being like, "This is the one I choose."
Right. And that happens for some people.
Right. But the point is, like, I think for women, again, you don't have men growing up be like, you know what I want to be when I grow up? I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a firefighter. They don't go, I want to be married. No, what dudes do not say that. Women do. I can't wait for my Cinderella moment. When I walk down the aisle. Women dream about their marriage day.
I don't know about anymore, though. I don't know about. Is that getting lost?
I think more women.
You think the girls on the Whatever podcast are looking for their Cinderella moment?
Less women in general, still more women than men.
Still more women than men.
So when it comes to what is my next relationship status going to be? Women plan that out. Men are just doing. They're just living their life. And in my situation, the priority for me was to turn my company, MOA, into an 8-figure company. That was number one. And when Kylie said, I'm on board with that, then she became my girlfriend. That's how it worked. So in that type of situation, she understood I had the discipline to do this. And with everything else, it's not like if I wasn't with her, I'd go I'd have another girlfriend. She's the only woman I would have chosen to be my girlfriend.
I got you.
And so because of that, it's not a function of discipline.
Not for you.
Not for me.
Not for you.
But I think for a lot of men, and I'm not going to call myself a high status man, but like for a lot of men who are high status, I think for them, it's the same kind of thing. They go through life and then one of them just hits you on the head so hard that you can't go without her. That's essentially what would go on in this situation. So I think it is Lila or Layla. How you say her
We're
name?
going to get to Lila in one second.
But Lila's definition of discipline is hers. It is not Justin's. Justin is allowed to have his own.
Yeah,
and the thing
for
is,
sure.
But the thing is, he'll do that, and he'll still make a lot of money, and he'll still have a ton of women who are attracted to him.
I was going to say he'll still be at the top of his
he'll
game.
still be at the top of the game. So for us,
That's not what she was saying, though. We'll get to her in a second
well, no,
because I want to play the clip.
because the way that she's defining discipline.
Can I get to her in 1 second because I want you to
Well,
comment.
let
Go ahead.
me throw one last thing out here. Okay, so like I have been married for 27 years. I've never cheated on my wife. I love her. I have respect for her. We have a kid.
She watching. Hello.
Yes, but
He's not lying, by the way.
Yeah,
He's not
and by
lying.
the way, I have there again. It's opportunity and reason, as far as infidelity is concerned. But like, it's closed on my end and closed on her end.
Correct.
Okay, for someone who wants to have a main and his side pieces, it's open on his end and closed on all of his girlfriend's end. Also, by the way, the most common version of this is open on women's end and closed on the guy's end. So if we're going to start talking about self-control,
That is the majority
let's
of
start
it.
looking
Yeah,
at all the girls on Instagram who are still advertising themselves after they're already in a relationship where it
available,
is
yeah.
closed on his end because he's not allowed to go cheat or go out and sell himself to other women. But at the same time, she's advertising herself to other men.
Very
so if
fair
you
point.
want to talk about self-control, if we're going to wag fingers, let's wag it in the right direction.
Before we get to Lila, I have a clip on her that I want to show. What do you guys make? There are some guys in the space. Sneeko is one. I think Andrew Tate to a degree, although I haven't had an in-person conversation with him, so it's hard to gauge that, are finding religion. Okay, they're claiming that, or claiming that they're finding religion. I do believe Sneeko is authentic. I had a long conversation with him about it. And as a result of finding that, they have changed their views on promiscuity as it relates to men. I think you've seen from Andrew as well, kind of a reduction of hedonism, and he's coming out and speaking a little bit more. It's just a different voice when it comes to all of this stuff. Does that change what's happening? Rollo, I ask you, but does it change what's happening in the red pill space? How do you think that is being received? Do you think it's, how do you feel about it all?
It's part of the script is what it is.
So do you think it's inauthentic?
Well, to an extent. Let's just say if it's not inauthentic, it's bloody convenient. So, by the way, Sneeko, Tate, anybody else who suddenly found religion after the red pill, you're not the first. It's not a novel idea. I can go back to Roosh V, who decided, one of the most notorious pickup artists through the late 2000s, all through the 2010s, suddenly finds Orthodox Christianity right around 2017, 2018, when the grift of what he was doing wasn't working for him anymore. So then what happens is they play the prodigal son card, which is, if you know anything about the story of the prodigal son, it's the prodigal son goes out, he takes his father's inheritance, goes out into the wide world and blows it all on hookers and blow, right? And then he comes back and they slay the fatted calf and they have a big party for them. And the guy who went out there and said, no, I'll eat with the trough with the pigs, whatever, like, it's okay. But no, the father creates this big grand feast for him because now his son that was lost to him suddenly comes back. And that narrative plays very, very well in the social media age right now because it's not about the prodigal son. It's about the people who are believers in the first place. So when that guy comes back to the fold, everybody gets a reaffirmation of we believe the right thing. Because here's a guy who went out there, lived a life of promiscuity and all this quote unquote red pill manosphere stuff, however you want to mischaracterize it. They went out there, had their fun with hookers and blow and came back, and now they want to be Muslim, they want to be Christian, they want to be, I think the only thing that's left for me is to become a Jew or something. Maybe I'll be a Sikh.
Are you religious, by the way?
I am religious. I've written a whole book on religion. I have a fourth book. I spent 3 freaking years writing.
What is the religion you identify?
I'm a Christ follower. Okay.
So
I have a faith.
As somebody who follows Christ, though, we can acknowledge that it is possible that for me, like, and I can't determine whether Sneeko has found this authentically.
Sure.
I mean, I'm not living inside his body and inside his mind and whatnot, or Tate or whatever is going on. on. But it is possible that they went down that path and saw a darkness in there. And when you find religion, part of that is an awakening, right? You get awakened to a better way. So it is possible to me that, I understand what you're saying about it being convenient in terms of marketing and whatnot.
You can't question that. Like if I say, is that for real or not? Just me saying, is that for real or is that not? It's not an attack on the person who I'm asking this about. It's an attack on the entire faith. So everybody who aligns with him suddenly comes, a landslide of hate comes at me just for asking that question, because that guy coming back to the fold is a reaffirmation of what their beliefs were in the first place.
And my perception from sitting with him is that it is authentic.
Yeah.
I think Sneako's gone down a path
that's up to the person, right?
She's come out on the other side. And I happen to
it.
agree personally with, now I've always agreed on this stuff. We had our first conversation about, I've always been anti-promiscuity on both sides. I've been like, this is a dark hole. So for me, seeing them come to this awareness, I'm like, great, this is good for guys to hear that you did it and it didn't serve you, and now you're coming out and saying a really powerful message to them. So for me, it's a great thing. Whether or not I could speak to, the authenticity inside their hearts, I can. But it is possible to me that somebody could be, because I never call myself red pill, because I honestly have had a really hard time understanding.
Adjacent.
Like, what does that even mean? Everybody has a different view.
So how about this? Red pill is a collection of I don't want to say facts, but like, again, I understand gravity. It doesn't make me a gravityist. You understand these concepts. It's like, if 78% of women are filing for divorce from men, then getting a prenup is probably a good idea. That's a red pill belief, right? It doesn't mean it's 100% of the time, but that's what I guess red pill adjacent would mean.
Yeah,
you're red pill aware, red pill
right.
aware.
And what I say is, like, I do see that there are some components, not all, that can be a little bit dark. Like the promiscuity for me is a dark part of it that I don't think is good.
It doesn't all taste good.
Yeah, and I welcome what they're saying, but I was just curious how you guys have been in this space a lot longer than I have, and it's interesting to see people kind of discover a new vision. Sneako sounds very different to me.
Okay, but I look at it in this perspective, is that when you have a woman who goes through her quote unquote hoe phase, which are 18 to 28, right about 29, 30, 31.
That's a long phase.
That's 10 years. Right? Well, it's
Plastic surgery.
It's when women have the most
now.
potential to exercise their sexual agency. So 29, 30, 31 is usually what I peg as the Epiphany phase, and that's when women want to get right with God, and they want to get back to the church, and they want to find a guy who's going to be the ride or die guy, who's going to have babies with them, and he's going to provide protection, provisioning, and parental investment. And it's usually paired up with this epiphany. That's what I call it, the epiphany phase of, I better start living my life right. It's very similar to the prodigal son narrative that I say. So when I see someone like, say, Lila Rose, who's getting married at 33, it's like right on schedule. It's a predictive framework. You're doing exactly what I'm pointing out in every one of my books. It's still a cope.
It's a cope.
Because it's like, okay, I learned my lesson. I went out into the wide world and I had my fun. And now I was so wild in my college days. I've had my fun. I'm looking for somebody serious. No fun for you. But now we're going to go and get serious about things. Well, where was that when you were 23 at the top of your game?
I don't know what she was doing. I don't know how much you know about
that. No, just women in general.
But the epiphany isn't, I should have got married at 23. The epiphany isn't, I shouldn't run through all those dudes when I was in college. The epiphany isn't, I should have made better decisions when I was younger. The epiphany is, I need to get right with God now. And then why aren't these men stepping up to deal with the decisions I make, like the Sheryl Sandberg
lining up, because I've realigned myself.
I've made this realization, and I should not be held accountable. I should not be held accountable for anything I did in the past. Mia Khalifa, I should not be held anything I did in the past. And so because of that, because you're holding me accountable, you are a misogynist. Why are you not stepping up? Why are you not accepting me for this truth that I am right now? And the thing is, I don't hate you, Mia Khalifa. I just found a 21-year-old girl that I'm dating, and I'm just not going to wait for you.
Why can't you exercise that self-control to fulfill where I'm at right now? Because the Lord has forgiven me. Why can't you? Let's go forward. Oh, and by the way, it's those red pill sons of bitches who've been teaching these guys to not get with me now that I need them the most. Yes.
Okay, so I want to ask about the traditional conservative. Deli, I want you to pull a clip for me. I'm all the way at the end, though. I decided not to do the other clips because we were having a great discussion. Go to number 4. Do you see where it says Rollo versus TradCons and that tweet? Do you see that, Del?
Hey, can I get a 30-second bathroom break?
Do you need to go to the bathroom?
Yeah, can I go
real
quick?
You can.
All right, give me one
Deli, can you let him out?
Yeah.
Someone drank too much water. I'm not going to say who it is, but can you open up? Okay. So, and then when Deli gets back,
that's what happens when you have energy drinks.
What did you drink. I remember one time we were on and Justin was like, I have to pee really bad. He announced it and I was like, oh my God, what are we going to do here?
See, that's a difference between a professional.
There you go. There you go. Deli, when you have a sec, I'm going to play this. Well, Michael have to just catch up, but let's play the clip on number 4. And you had written something above it. Let's take the tweet first as well so I can just see what Rollo wrote above it. Okay, social conservatives don't care about young people. They care about votes. And that was the clip. Can we just play that clip so we can hear it?
The reason the divorce rate is so high now is more women we are capable to be financially independent.
So this is something I'm super passionate about because I think there's been a version of maybe fundamentalist Christianity that people have experienced that they felt really hurt by. And so they've kind of lashed out against it and rejected it. And I see this a lot, actually. But the reality is when, I was raised Protestant, went through this kind of semi-agnostic phase, kind of like you went through, and then I ended up Catholic after doing a ton of study and a ton of research and just being convinced by the beauty of it. And it was learning about how men and women are of equal dignity, they're equal partners, learning about sex, what God's design is, which is a beautiful one, that it is about pleasure. It absolutely is about pleasure. And pleasure, it's not dirty or shameful, but it's also about procreation and the ability to bring life into the world. And it's designed to be within marriage where you're in a lifelong public commitment to someone that you're going to give yourself 110% to. And that's how you build a beautiful family of love and respect, and your children are secure in your love that you have with your spouse. And so, I don't know all of your experiences, obviously, and everyone has had different experiences, but the reality is the social data proves that monogamous lifelong marriages make people happiest, they have the most sex and the best sex, and kids are healthier that way. And so that's why I know you're excited about that vision, Chase, and that's why we want to share that vision, not just because of some fundamentalist thing, but because it actually makes people happier and healthier in the long run.
You need to talk to my people then.
We'll continue on that.
And there were a bunch of clips that came out of this where I guess people had posted Lila's stuff, and she was saying essentially that, at one point Justin challenges her and says, does that mean that I won't be as happy as you because I have, X, Y, and Z set up? And she says no, because, but my first beef with you was just that traditional conservatives don't care about these values, that they only care about votes. Because I am a traditional conservative, and I can tell you that I really do care about this stuff. I care about, and I think, I know Lila, not well, but I haven't even met her in person, but I know her work because I followed her real takedown of Planned Parenthood over the years, and she's done some phenomenal work. When nobody wanted to talk about Planned Parenthood, she ripped that organization to shreds, rightfully so. And I think that she really does want, whether you like her delivery or not, she's coming from a place where I think she really does believe that mom and dad in the home is best for society. So to say that traditional conservatives don't want what's best for society, that they're not, talking from a place of wanting improvements in society and improvements in community, I think that's wrong. I think that's where you make a messed up. Defend that. I would love to hear you defend that.
So first off, whenever I see social conservatives get into this space, and they, like I said, remember I was saying about the pick and pull method? We love this part, but we don't like this part. So we want to dip our toes in doing clips of whatever podcast or Fresh and Fit, whatever that. And so whenever you hear that same message of sort of masculine self-improvement, it's not about the actual guy. It's about solving a problem for women at that time. So we have this big army of women saying there's not enough guys. They all suck. All these guys are girly men. They're manginas, whatever the euphemism is of the time, right? We'll say that they need to. It's the same man up narrative we've been telling guys for a long time. Although you can hear it come from the left and you can hear it come from the right. But what happens is when it comes from the right, the message for man up, be the best version of yourself is attached with a little ending there that says so that more women will have better guys so that they can, because what they're doing is the impetus of male improvement is so women can get married to these guys because there's not enough guys. So what they're trying to do is basically solve the female problem rather than be involved in that guy himself, like saying, you know what, here's why you ought to do these things.
But I don't think that's what it is.
Behind
I don't
that.
think it's to solve a female problem when it comes from traditional conservative women. I think it's to solve a societal problem, meaning that the goal for me always is how do we make men and women enter into more happy, productive, safe unions? Because the goal, we're really thinking about kids all the time.
Yeah, okay.
We're thinking about community. We're thinking about family. So when she speaks, and I know her delivery was off-putting to some, that's how Lila talks. That's her way. But I think what she was trying to say is that this isn't about women. This isn't about men. This is about union. This is about what's going to create the most cohesive structure for a family. And I think, honestly, as I was listening to her talk, you would probably agree with her on a lot of things. You believe in monogamy. You practice monogamy.
Obviously.
You believe in family. And I've heard you extensively talk about how you believe that a monogamous structure is the best for society at large. So you're in agreement. There's just something that's happening with the delivery that is not hitting home.
I'll explain the tweet here really quickly, because all of this stuff bubbles up to the top right around election season. So suddenly everybody's worried about what's wrong with the kids today, 18 months before November, the first Tuesday in November, when we have the election. So what I'm seeing, and I've seen this go through at least 3 different election cycles now since 2016, what happens is everybody who is in the red pill and wanted to be, sort of dip their toes in the manosphere, it is an outreach program for the people who they think are going to be their future voters. This time around, and this is just me spitballing here, but this time around, the culture war narrative is going to be what at least conservatives are going to say is, well, we need to fight moral degeneracy. We need to fight we need to fight these guys who aren't about closed on my end, closed on her end kind of things. We need to fight that kind of that degeneracy in the. So where are those people at? Where are the people that we need to appeal to? They're on whatever podcast. They're on Fresh and Fit. They're on Access Vegas, whatever it is. So they'll come out there and now they'll pay attention to those guys, because that's what they believe anyways, is the youth and the younger voter base. Am I saying that's right or that's wrong? No, but what I am saying is that the reason why you're hearing this right now is not because they actually care about those people in the first place. They care about that outreach to get those votes.
I think that's probably true for some people in the movement who are all about talking points and are all about, what's going to get me clicks, and all about, that exists. And
Which
a lot
is
of those
pretty much
people, by the way,
right now.
a lot of those people, by the way, existed in corporate media and then found a space in this alternative media and aren't terribly well intentioned, but true traditional conservatives, who really care about this stuff.
Who aren't on TV and don't have podcasts.
But I mean also people. I mean, she I don't know. She has a podcast, Lila, but there are people who have platforms. Like I'm sitting here right now, and I was in corporate media, and I have a platform, and I can tell you, the reason I started talking about men and women was not because I wanted to be in the red pill space, but because I realized, oh, wait a second, I'm talking about cultural rot this whole time, and a lot of this is happening. Look what the feminist movement is doing. Look at how it's manifesting in these women. Yeah. Look at this toxic masculinity that's really not toxic. Let me get on in there and let me try to see what I can say about this that can positively impact this. Also, you have to realize Brian on that show, I mean, he reached out to me. I haven't gone out. I don't like to travel, so I may get out there. But I think he's trying to provide that space where you bring on the traditional conservatives and let them have their voice. So they've never been invited to places like that. I will guarantee you that people in the traditional conservative movement weren't always getting these invites to go on podcasts and talk about this. Now that they're getting it, they're like, I'm showing up because I want people to see that this is not the path. This is not the path. This is the path. And in her view, what Justin Waller is doing, although she probably is respectful of his individual choice, that's not the path to happiness for most people.
What I'm seeing is what we call Jesus smuggling right now. And what happens is you go to these shows or you go to these podcasts under sort of the auspices of, we're going to have a down-to-earth discussion about the nuts and bolts of intersexual dynamics, of men's nature, women's nature, pretty much everything that's in the red pill. And then suddenly within a half an hour, it's let me tell you why you need to accept Jesus into your heart and be saved, or here's the Quran, or here's whatever the particular religion is.
So you feel that it's preachy and it's not authentic.
Well, it's not. What it is it's under false pretenses. So you've got a Fresh and Fit style show, let's be honest. And so when you bring people on there and you're saying, hey, we're going to talk about your things, we're going to talk about this, promiscuity, this, body counts, all this kind of stuff, or whatever, we're going to talk about your books, right?
Yep.
Okay, let's get into that. Let's talk about Rollo's tweet. Let's talk about this. And you know what? Half an hour later, now suddenly we're talking about religion and why you're a very, very bad person because you're not trying to lead people to your particular religion.
Let's talk about this. When Tucker Carlson
Oh, yeah.
When he leaves
Yeah.
Fox, one of the things he says is that the things you see on the news media are literally true, but they're not actually true. Do you remember
Right.
that?
Oh, yeah, I
And he
watched
was
it.
talking about how certain things
That's
are taken
accurate.
out of context. Do you remember that clip where apparently it's all over Twitter where Justin Waller is apparently getting owned? Notice there's music playing when she's talking, and then as soon as Justin responds, the music cuts off. You are being manipulated. If I was sitting next to Justin when he made that answer, I'd be like, yeah, good answer, bro. It's like I wouldn't even thought twice. They have edited that clip to make him look a certain way. So know when you are being manipulated. Justin has every right to choose whether he wants to be with multiple women or one woman.
I agree, by the way. It's
that
his
is
life.
Totally his choice. For her to then say, well, by my definition of discipline, you're not doing that well, I thought that was inappropriate. What I would have said if I was Justin in that moment is being like, were you interested in monogamy when you were 23? I'm going to guess maybe she was. Probably she wasn't, and most women aren't. And I'm going to say, listen, you're at your peak at 23. You've been gifted $1 million. Now I'm Justin Waller. I'm 38. I had to work for $1 million. And so how come at my peak, I have to be concerned with monogamy, but at your peak, you weren't? Why is that okay? That's utterly hypocritical.
Where is your
I don't know that
self-control?
she wasn't, because
Oh,
she's
but
always been
so let's
that.
just say-
I would be
let's
surprised,
just
but
say-
I don't know.
take her
But
out.
if
Let's
you're
just say
using
wo-
that,
let's just say women in
right,
general.
Right.
Let's just say women in general. You were invited on the yacht at 23. I had to work till I was 45 to buy this yacht.
Right.
So don't tell me at 23 when you weren't interested in me and you weren't interested in monogamy that all of a sudden what you had wasn't undisciplined, but me at 45 busting my ass to buy the yacht. Now I'm undisciplined because I don't want to settle down with you.
I would just invite you to just see, though, that to me, when I heard it, and everyone's going to hear that content differently, but that wasn't her argument. For me, the reason that again, like, would I have delivered her commentary differently?
Yeah.
Yes, I would have. We're very different. The approach, I think, probably did lose some people on the panel. But again, what I feel the need for always, and what I do sometimes, is remind people, my goal isn't, yes, you're free to live whatever life you want. Like, I'm a big proponent of freedom. Make the choices you want for your own life, as long as it's consensual. No one's being forced into anything. No one's being hurt. Do what you want to do. But objectively, I want to be able to talk about what I think is good for society at large.
Sure, yeah.
So that's what I think she was getting at. Like, hey, you can do what you want. Do I think you're going to have less happiness following that path? I do. But it's not good for society at large, because the best prescription for success for children is mommy, daddy, household, not 50 girlfriends. That's what I feel that she was trying to say, which I wholeheartedly agree with, by the way. And I don't, and I'm someone who tells him, I mean, Justin sat with me and we had that conversation, and I talked to him about how I just didn't think that was a recipe for success. And that also, if you ultimately value these women who respect their bodies, and you ultimately value these women who really care about these things, like what you would call a high value woman, and you know that it would bring them pain for you to sleep around, which I think he at one point acknowledged in the podcast with me. He said it would bring them pain.
Yeah.
That you shouldn't want to do that. You should want to try not to make that happen,
sure,
right?
Yeah.
That was
And
my conversation with him.
And I would agree with that. But I did want to get to one aspect here, and I think one of the biggest lies and one of the grandest scams we have perpetrated on the human race since like probably the mid '60s is this idea that happiness is some attainable nirvanic goal state that we can all just have, and it's heaven. Like, we're basically selling heaven, right? It's pure contentment no matter what. And so every time somebody says, well, that's not what's going to make you really happy, no, that you're selling a lie and you're selling a dream right there, because happiness is an emotion and it's an emotive state. And I mean,
and it's really different for everybody.
But every time we hear it mentioned, you're not going to be happy. You're going to be a lonely old man, and nobody's going to be at your bedside when you pass peacefully into the next life. You're not going to be happy, right?
Right.
Whenever I hear that, all I've got to go do is all I have to do to disprove that is look at the antidepressant prescriptions for women over the last 20 some odd years. And again, this is big pharma that's doing this, but they're playing on the idea that happiness is some sort of maintainable, sustainable goal state, that you can always be in this state of bliss and happiness all the time. And so what happens is it gets into the fabric of like just what our ideals are. So we tend to take that fantasy of what happiness actually is, and we apply it to whatever our pet ideology is. So it's like, Justin, you're never going to be happy that way because, sooner or later, you're going to figure out that I'm right and my version of happiness is right and you're wrong. And so all it is just this back and forth about you're not living your life. You might as well just say this. You're not living your life right and I am. And so you'll be happier or you'll find some sort of contentment and satisfaction if you come over to the way that I think.
Yeah, and I would say, by the way, and I'll let you 1 second, Justin very well may be happy doing that. Like, it's not up for me to decide if he's happy.
Happiness isn't even that
I do
state,
think,
though.
like, as a female, it's hard for me to wrap my head around a woman being happy in that. A woman like
exactly
me,
my point.
being
That is
happy
exactly
in that structure.
my point. There is an unfairness and an inequitability when it comes to these two genders. If you told me this man is in his mid-40s and he is making millions of dollars a year and he runs a company and he's dating multiple women, and you ask me on average, is this guy happy? I'd say he probably is. He probably could be. If you told me the same thing was a woman with multiple master's degrees, she is single and childless in her mid-40s and she's dating multiple men and she's making millions of dollars, on average, I would say most people would agree with me that she's probably not happy. And if we were to look at the cohort of people who are being prescribed the most antidepressant medications, it is women over the age of 40 who are childless and unmarried. And so that's the thing. It is not, if you want to say, is it a double standard? Yes. Are you saying it's not fair? It is not fair. I have 17 times as much testosterone in my body as a woman does. So things are not the same for us.
They're not the same. I do think, though, that guy, the same way that you described your girlfriend, you said she kind of landed in my lap and it was like, yes. I do think that men, can go through many stages of life. And when you do meet that woman, and sometimes there is a woman that changes everything for you and you decide to do things differently, there is a happiness that comes from that structure of just one man and one woman and children that you really can't envision or feel until you have it. And that was the case for me. Even I always knew that I would be a good mom if I had a baby, but I could not imagine the depth of this love and how it would change me, and also how it would make everything that I did before look so meaningless, to be perfectly honest, compared to
oxytocin.
Being, I mean, he is all of that for me. Like, he is just, I just can eat him alive.
Did you smell his head when he was a little baby?
And I'm starting to get upset. I'm a little upset because he's losing his baby smell, and I'm like, give me the baby smell.
He's a big football of oxytocin.
Exactly. I want to get to your show because we have to wrap.
My point as far as happiness is concerned is that emotions for human beings, period, are designed to motivate you from one state to another. This is where I disagree with like Andrew Tate, who says there's no such thing as depression. There is, because that depression is meant to motivate you to get out of a state that is unsustainable and move you to a state that is. When people are happy, they are happy in the doing, not the being, not what they get at the end, not the prize, not the diploma, not the new job. It's getting from point A to point B. And if you can find that intrinsically rewarding, then yes, you can find happiness in the process of getting from one place to another, because that happiness is what's motivating you to go from one state to the next. It is not sustainable. Discontent is what has defined the human condition forever.
My course is not called Men of Trauma Release. It's not called Men of the 5 Love Languages. It's called Men of Fucking Action, because you're correct.
I'm interested in
anyone selling you sustainable happiness is lying to you.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to get to your show, Access Vegas. You guys host this show together. I have a clip from it. I pulled a couple, actually.
I can hardly wait to see which ones you pulled.
I want to see all of them.
I pulled literally
it's going to be Gia. I know it's going to be Gia.
No, let's go to number 5. Let's pull 2801 as an example. For those of you who don't know the show, check it out.
Oh, boy.
Are you doing stuff with your husband on OF? I'm just going to ask that question. So you are doing guy-girl stuff?
I am doing porn.
Okay.
That's not a lie. I am a porn star.
I wasn't right. Okay, so can I believe your husband?
I am a porn star. I don't deny that. And here's my thing, too. You can believe in God, and you can have sex, and you can watch porn, and you can have sexual desires. I just don't believe that they have to be separate.
Okay, so I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Of course you are. That's why we're all here.
It's usually my job. All right, cool. So no, we'll do it again. I'm devil's advocate. Obviously, you and I are friends. But the thing I want to say here is, so do you understand when, from his standpoint, because he didn't actually come after you. He actually just retweeted the thing and said, "This is why." Yeah,
okay,
Andrew did. Yeah. But from his standpoint, it's not that. Let's just say, I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but just an overall argument might be, it's not that you're bad. It's that I may want to choose someone who isn't a porn star, who ascribes to the religion that I believe in, whether it is Islam or Christianity, and that person that I may want to have sex with hasn't had kids before, and I'm the first person to have kids with them, and hasn't been with a bunch of men, and hasn't done guy-girl porn. Does that make sense?
Sure, and you get to have that experience.
So that might be be the devil's advocate reason for why he would post what he posted and why that was so viral.
Listen,
Does that make sense?
Yes. I'm not mad about the post. Like, you get to have your preferences. I think, if anything, I agree that people get to have their preferences. Like, I've stood for that. And let me be clear, I am not doing guy-girl porn with a bunch of people. I do guy-girl porn with my husband that I've been with for 12 years.
Okay,
See,
so
that's where I think
that's a bit of the show. I want to ask you guys with this show, because a lot of these shows have a similar format now. You know, you see whatever podcast, the Fresh and Fit model, your model. It's a bunch of people around the table having a conversation. What is your goal? Why are you different?
Cool.
Because we use statistics. So one of the things we do is we really try to hammer as much socioeconomic data as we possibly can in our show and get people's reaction to it. We are not here trying, and we don't start off with prescriptions. So like, for instance, that girl sitting next to me in that clip is one of my best friends in the world, CJ Sparks. CJ is 38 years old and says that she is only interested in men who make $5 million a year or more.
I think it's 7 now.
Is it 7 million? And I go, CJ, you do understand
like
that what you're,
3 people.
again, she's one of my best friends. And I go, CJ, you do understand that what you're saying is delusional, like to the point where you're like 5 standard deviations off the norm. And she goes, yes, I understand. That is the best we can do, Jedediah. I personally think to inform people of their own, like, maybe not ignorance, but at least to allow them to understand the socioeconomic truths. Like, for instance, I want a man who is 6 feet tall. He makes over $100,000 a year. He is not obese and he is not married. And women will be like, man, that's like at least 40-50% of men. It is 0.38% of men in the United States fit that category. You are quadruple fucked, but you didn't realize it. You didn't realize it, until you came on my show, and those are the clips that go viral. We want to expose. There is no calling them 304s. There is absolutely no. The reason why I don't do
our goal is not to kick them off.
Yes, yeah.
So,
there's no more. The reason why there's no moral judgment on my show is because everyone else is doing that. We don't have to. We are just going to stick with the numbers. We are a show about statistics and evolutionary psychology, and when we expose them to these ideas and we have counter arguments, but there's no hatred on our show. And a lot of the girls that are on there are friends of mine.
Again, you can tell the vibe. You can tell the vibe.
And so here's
we
what
have a lot of fun on that.
Here's what also makes the show different. A lot of times, and it's not Myron's fault, because the Myron and Fresh, they have to have 3 different groups of girls on 3 different weeks. They don't know most of those girls. Every girl who goes on Access Vegas, I know. So when they start saying, I like a dad bod, I'm like, you're dating a male stripper. I know your fucking boyfriend. That's what makes it different. Often, frequently, I call them out for things that they're saying that's different, but not in a mean way, because I do love them as my friends. But when they say that shit, I'm like, no, you're not getting away with this, because you aren't going to sit there and tell me. Now, when CJ Sparks says I'm not interested in looks, she's telling the truth. I've seen some of the swamp creatures she fucking dates.
So good.
And so I know she's absolutely telling the truth. But when another homegirl of mine is like, yeah, I'm into dad bods, I'm like, you are dating a male stripper. I know the guy you're dating.
They always say that. I know women aren't into dad bods, but they always say that crap.
So if you want to know what makes our show different, is that we stick to facts.
Yeah.
Okay, we stick to statistics.
Well, you got the guy here for the stats.
For the
both
stats.
of us. That's why we get along so well.
He and I read more on evolutionary psychology than anybody except for Lita Kosmides and David Buss.
Y'all can leave the Joan Rivers.
You should
leave the Joan
some
Rivers
of
to me.
some of our text exchanges where we're throwing articles.
And so we just don't want them to be left. Like, if you want to do this, I have a friend of mine. She was trafficked when she was younger.
Oh wow!
And then she stopped and she started filming guy-girl porn with her husband. And she started making $300,000-$500,000 a month. Crazy numbers.
Wow.
Crazy numbers on OF. She has 7 houses now, G-Wagons, whatever. I'm not going to go into the whole thing. Her husband passed away. But the thing about it is, from her standpoint, I need to at least have some empathy to recognize that is $500,000 a month, and I'm supposed to tell you that you're a hoe and you're supposed to stop doing this shit. I get it. I get why she's doing it. But at the same time, I need to express to her. I have a friend of mine, shout out to Nara Ford. She was sitting there saying, I film with multiple guys and my dream man is going to come. And if he doesn't come, it's just because he's insecure. And my response to that is, while I love Nara, the problem is when she says that, it is not insecure for me to not want the mother of my children to be having guy-girl sex on camera and selling it. That does not make me insecure. That's where the disagreement comes. So it's this push of these 2 ideas, but no one is disrespected on our show. And because I have more biographical and socioeconomic information on my people than what happens on these other shows where Brian and Myron are just kind of guessing that these girls are saying
that's what's happening.
Stop the cap. Stop. I don't have to say stop the cap. I know them well enough to be able to do it. So that's why our show is different.
I want it, Deli. Can you read some? Do you have some chats to read? I'm sorry,
3.
guys. By the way, I'm typically much more active in the chat, but this was a really good conversation. I typically don't have
4
2
hours.
people on at once. We can't do 4 hours. We're gonna have to wrap soon.
So used to doing like long.
I know.
Shows.
So, Deli, can you read some of those? Yep.
Adventure Sombrero said Mike and Rollo on their spring offensive.
That is true.
Going well so far after
stealing that.
noticing a W against Nico and Destiny. Great whatever episode the other night. MLD's in Miami. Big week for red pill content. Ryan, the Eating Warrior, sent 20. He said, Rollo, how are you going to advise young men on life when you yourself have not followed your own advice on that list? Do as I say, not as I do, LOL. Big L. You and 10 pulls beating need to retire.
Thanks.
Ooh.
All right. Yeah. Well, I mean,
Listen, they don't hold back.
Not advice. So not every here. Let me respond to that. Not everything that you read on Twitter
Is
is
advice.
self-help advice. Okay.
It's just a tweet.
Like you're commenting on his tweet and he has a kid. Like, who's actually taking the L, dude? Think about what you're saying. You're the one taking the L.
Yeah, we just got one more for Christopher Harris. He says, shout out to Rollo and Mike for the amazing debate the other night. Can we get a nasty?
Oh,
That's the last
nasty.
one.
Nasty. Well, I want to thank you guys. I know this is shorter than you're used to. Rollo, you talk for like what, 16 hours on your
16
own?
hours, yes.
Sometimes I
let's
turn
not
on his
spread
stream.
that.
I'm
Now-
not kidding.
Now everyone on Twitter will think that I'm
I
actually
turn on
doing
his
it for
stream
16 hours.
sometimes and I'll go like cook dinner, do a whole bunch of stuff, and I'll come back and I'm like, he's still talking.
Yeah.
He's still
He
going.
does 5 hours every Sunday.
I do one show every Sunday, 1 p.m. Pacific.
But in a
4
way,
p.m.
that's
Eastern.
probably like, I feel like that's probably good. You get it
Yeah.
all out at once, and then you kind of just go do
big
your other
dump.
stuff. Well, I want to thank you both for being here. I thought it was a great discussion, as I knew that it would be. I love the show. Everyone should check out Access Vegas. They do a great job over there. Is there anything else you guys would like to plug?
Definitely Access Vegas. I have a performance coaching program called MOA Mentoring. Please do not open that at work. It is not safe for work when you open it.
no.
Yeah.
Use my link.
Yeah, make sure you use his link. He's got the link for it. But we do, because I'm a former U.S. military officer, we do teach the concepts of leadership, entrepreneurship,
Awesome.
and different stuff
I
like
love
that.
it.
But there are some pretty girls on there. I'm not encouraging hedonism, but one of the things I do say is that, like, a lot of times for men, when women see attractive women with another man, they are more interested, and also men are the same way too. So that's one of the things we talk about in the program. And also, men, just check out the Michael Sartain podcast, which I have a 4-hour interview of Adam Sosnick. Nobody's ever had a 4-hour interview of him
Wow.
before. It's going to be coming out soon. I also have the longest interview ever of this guy right here, of Rollo Tomassi. You guys can definitely check that out. So make sure you go to check out the Michael Sartain podcast and Access Vegas with the both of us.
Yes,
Rollo.
all 5 of my books are available on Amazon.com. I am working on a 5th one or a 6th one, but not the part of the series right now. Let's see. I am doing my show, which is The Rational Male, every Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. We're doing Access Vegas every other week for the time being, at least until we get into June and decide if we want to go weekly. And so that's every Thursday or every other Thursday at
25th
8 p.m.
at 8 p.m. It'll be the next one will be on the 25th at 8 p.m.
at 8 p.m. And we're doing Babes in Toyland.
Yeah, last
and
thing I
we're
want-
doing
yeah, last thing-
Fresh and Fit tonight, as a matter of fact.
So last thing I want to say is Babes in Toyland charity. We're raising money for animal rescue. That is going to be on the 20th. It's going to be at Hyde SLS. You guys can find tickets at babesandtoylandcharity.com. We're also doing one for troops overseas. It's going to be July 12th. Just go to babesandtoylandcharity.com. We unapologetically use incredibly beautiful influencers to raise money for charity. That's what we do.
Yes.
We raise money for animal rescue, domestic abuse. We raise money for troops overseas and for underprivileged and homeless children. That's what we do. Because some of these girls, they have 10 million followers. Let's use that superpower for good. So that's what this charity.
I think that's a great
And
idea.
while we were talking in this show right now, they just aired the second part of the Dr. Phil show that I was
Oh,
on. So you
about
can-
time. So everybody can go check that out.
Please go have a look. I have no idea what it's about right now because I've been here. So
I'm sure it was
the second
edited.
Part 2 is. Yeah,
I'm sure it was
it
edited
is.
beautifully.
Yes.
Well, thank you both. Everyone, join me. I'll be back in a couple of days where I will be calling the 304s because I told them leave the Joan Rivers to me. I got it covered. They can do the stats, and I'll do the Joan Rivers. I love you all. Thank you for being here. As always, hugs and kisses. Go eat some Italian food. It makes you feel better. Just saying. Bye.
Take care, guys.